safe space is a place where Black men learn, heal, thrive, and value the freedom to be. A safe space allows Black men to color outside the lines without judgment, stigmas, biases, or boundaries. A safe space is a place where our Black voices impacts and counts. And here are your hosts, Ty Baker Jr. and Dax Addy.
So, guys, we're back. We had such a good discussion the last time over everything, man. Everything that's safe space, and honestly, as we talked, I noticed that we got into this place, man, talking about this one topic, right? That's been a big one amongst people, and especially Black men nowadays.
Yeah.
And that's depression.
Right.
And you were sharing your story, I was sharing mine. It's a common ground that we all kind of know very well, very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like nobody escaped,
Right.
And me and you talked offline, and just so happens that one of my boys' family, to you and I, we work in the industry together. This is a man, like I told you, we used to pop off the little Chevron. It's like, what you take, man? You take anything real? Nah, I got some lollipops and some Snickers. Like, these dudes went in to steal something. They took a lollipop and Snickers. We left the money, though. That wasn't important, right? And we got out with that, right? But this is a good friend of mine, man. He's made his way through life. I didn't even know this, successful cinematographer, filmmaker, worked in television. Great guy, outstanding guy, right? But like I said, in times you don't even know what people are going through beside you. And you gave me the luxury of actually inviting him, to come sit down with us. You and I know him, and he's just always been like a good dude. I always said that when I grow up, I want to be at least half as him, because if I make half, then God will approve the other 50. You know what I'm saying?
Listen, he is the coolest dude in the room when he walks in.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, the dude got gold on gold on gold on. Y'all see when we pan to him. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Trey Hamilton.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor to be here.
So, Trey, man, you're my idol outside of the Bible. All right, let's start there. So, this is the coolest dude, man. I worked with him, you know what I'm saying? Like, he just seems to keep a level head, always has an answer or a solution, you know what I'm saying, for a lot of things, when we're working in production. And he was just easy. There's certain people who are just easy in terms of transition with information or what have you. My experience with Trey is, in my lifetime, just our friendship has always been like, man, I got to do A, B, and C, and I'm all fidgety and acting weird, and he looking at me like,
calm and collect.
Calm and, hey, lunch is coming. If you want to eat, lunch is coming. Just relax.
Yep.
And I never knew, this is something that we didn't talk about, but I never knew he too was going through some of the struggles that we had talked about on the last show. So just the presence of, talking about those things and it being premiering in his life at the time, I didn't even know at the time. So he was going to share some of his stories with us and like how some of this stuff happened. There's a big question here for us. One of the biggest questions I had is like, when did you know, what I'm saying, something was up with you when you started going through some of the things you were going through and started like looking at depression?
I think I've always known. I remember when I was younger, and I want to preface this by saying that, I have the best mother in the world, but I also understand like her background. And I remember when I was 7 years old, I expressed to her like a feeling of like worthlessness, and she shut me down. She was like, man, shut that shit up. in so many words, in so many words. And I think as a result, I just carried that through life, and just always told myself it wasn't a real thing, or it wasn't something to acknowledge, and then I'm 38 now. When I was 33, that's when shit really hit the fan, proverbially, literally, physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that. And it kind of caused me to like really own my superpower, which I believe is introspection. But a side effect of that superpower is overthinking, and overthinking can exacerbate depression. But once I started like looking inward as to like why I was moving a certain type of way. I started to get some clarity, but I also started to like add fuel to the fire of overthinking.
Go ahead.
You may ask?
Go ahead.
Right? Talk about being, were you alone a lot?
No, that was my problem. I was never alone, not until I was 33. I spent my entire life like I lived with family. I had roommates. I moved in with a girl a woman that I eventually married. But at the age of 33, just through circumstances, I ended up like having a significant period of time to myself. It was the first time like in my entire life that I spent more than a week by myself. Wow. And at that point, my best friend / roommate, he was working out of the country. He was gone for like 4 months over a summer. And that was it. That was my first time being alone, when you by yourself, you have to kind of deal with yourself. And, that just led me down the path, a very dark path, but one that eventually I began to see a light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like I'm still in the tunnel, but I'm closer to the light than I am to the dark, Yeah.
And in those times, well, before we move on, let me introduce our other guests real quick as well. We got Terrell Tepper here, LPC here in Atlanta, Georgia.
Definitely.
He's going to be here to add perspective and give us some advice as well.
Okay.
But
honored to be here. I appreciate the invite.
Most definitely, man.
What's an LPC?
Licensed professional counselor.
Okay. Bro, I've been looking for you all my life. No. I mean, okay, so I'm on my 4th therapist at this point, right? I went through 3 women therapists, and then it took me months to find, almost a year to find a black man. The first 2 women therapists, was just like, it just didn't work. Yeah, actually, the first one didn't work. The second one was a marital counselor, and she just, I guess because of whatever legal parameters, couldn't counsel solely me, right? But I liked her style. The third one was a lady in California. Her name is LaDonna. I forget her last name, but she was exquisite up until we had a conversation and I expressed something that I just felt like a man would understand. Her question to me was like, why would you do that? And I'm like, because I'm a man, right. So at that point, it dawned on me that, okay, I need to find a black man, someone who could identify with my plight. And bro, when I say it took me forever, not only to find a male therapist, but a black man.
So I get that. I was telling them the other day, I get that response almost every time I meet a client because I think the media will show you a picture of a mental health therapist, and it's never somebody that looks like you. Mm-hmm. So until you're exposed to that personally, you're thinking of mental health as something on a pedestal that won't be able to relate to what I'm going through. Mm-hmm. And what I typically like to do, and I was telling them this yesterday, is I want to translate some of the concepts, approaches, skills, and aptitudes into things that regular people can understand.
Sure.
And, my own personal story, I've had trauma. And another thing that I want to just throw in right here is, since the topic is depression, my grandmama used to always tell me, when you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the first step is knowing better.
Yeah.
So in our community, it takes a awareness of what depression is and what it's not in order to approach it the right way. Right. So what I have learned through my experiences in education and everything is that depression is something that everybody experiences to one degree or another.
Yeah.
I think what the overarching kind of way of looking at it is either I have it or I don't.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that's an appropriate way to look at it. I think that depression happens from a general place when the triggers that cause depression supersede your skills that you have to cope with it. Mm-hmm. So everybody's experiencing triggers. You need to have just as many coping skills. If it gets out of whack, then you're going to feel it.
Right.
So I think what happens is, we take on all of these triggers and we encounter things in life. We never put deliberate steps in place to decompress. And then, eventually it piles up. I like to look at it like a cup. It's a cup of water or a cup of whatever. The triggers is pouring into the cup, right? if you constantly pouring into the cup, eventually what's going to happen to that cup?
It's going to overflow.
It's going to overflow. And if you ever seen a cup overflow, it's not a pretty sight. It get on everything.
Right.
Or you can deliberately take that cup and pour a little bit out.
Correct.
Pour a little bit more out. Now my cup is going down. The level of, liquid or whatever is in there is going down. But it's a deliberate thing.
Right.
I can pour it on this and keep this dry. But if you let it overflow, then it's going to be everywhere. So again, I'm used to talking to people that's not going to respond to, did you do your homework last night? Did you put the parameters in place that I requested you to do?
But I feel like that's why a lot of people don't go after therapy as well, because it's like, I'm not looking for someone to give me some homework to do. I'm looking for someone that I can open up to and guide me to where I need to go. At least that I can speak for myself.
Right. And I can say from a depiction standpoint, the way they depict therapy in movies and TV shows and stuff like that, it's kind of like antagonistic. It's like, you're talking to me like I'm in kindergarten.
Right.
You're using all of these words that's, not a part of my everyday vocabulary. I'm having to go home and look up everything you said. I'd rather you be able to talk to me in a way that we feel like we on a, even playing field.
Right.
So I try to talk to my people as peers and not from a pedestal.
That's good.
Go ahead. No.
I want to go back to what you were saying, Trey, because so you were in that dark place by yourself, when your friend went out of town, and that was the first time you had been by yourself. And I know how that feels. So when you're going through that time, what's keeping you motivated to just keep going instead of, calling it quits or, whatever? Because I know for me, like when I was in that dark place, I was telling you the other day, I was just, I don't care who you are. I don't see anybody. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything, and what kept you motivated to even just keep going?
I don't know if there was a motivation. I think I was just on autopilot. I think I was just kind of checking the boxes and, just doing what I could do for the sake of distraction.
Right.
So I immersed myself in work a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would state that that's a motivation. But it was a distraction.
Yeah. That's it's crazy you said that, because Dax and I, when we were talking about this episode and I was giving my own personal experiences, and then we even talked about it last episode, I was like, the one thing that kept me going is just focusing on work, more work, not even realizing that I'm hurting, not even realizing I'm needing help. And I feel like that's what a lot of men do, especially black men, because it's like, I'm going through this, but no one's going to listen to me.
Right.
I can't go to my homeboy because, remember I said last week, they're going to laugh at you.
I was going to laugh at you. I tell you right now, I'm going to laugh at you. I was going to laugh at you real good. You're going to hate me for 3 weeks, and I'll call you like, hey, but listen, I need some money. right. So it's funny you say that, though, but like, what is that stage called? Like, is there a name for that or terminology for that, Terrell? Like, when you're in that place?
Well, what he was describing sounds like dysthymia to me. And what that is just a lower level of depression, where not where you was experiencing where you are helpless and hopeless and isolated and all of those things. He was still able to live his life, but he was suffering through it. But I think what the issue is, or one of the issues, like he was saying, is that he was filling his life with obligations and responsibilities. That's what I was referring to when I was saying triggers. All of those things trigger a stress reaction, right? And until you put things in place to pour that proverbial cup out, then those stress reactions just mount on each other.
For sure.
And then you look up one place one day and you like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
Well, it was a gradual thing that you swept under the rug and thought it was going to get better on its own. You never put anything deliberate in place to interrupt that process. So why would it not get there eventually?
So you just kept on working and...
Yeah, I did, but I had that moment where my cup runneth over. And it's funny because to hear you two describe me as this cool, calm, collected individual.
Man, you got a gold chain on.
I perceive myself as such too. I like to carry myself because it's a lot of chaos out here. I experience a lot of chaos internally, and I don't think that it's my place to like bring that onto the next person because they're going through their own chaos too. So I try to be, a modicum of peace and calm and clarity, right? But I was working on this show, and at that point in my life, I was a functional drunk. I kept a flask on me. It's funny. I remember, so it actually happened backwards. I had this explosive moment at work where, despite my cool and calm and collected disposition, I got into a physical altercation with someone at work, and my goal was to kill him. Like I had my hands around his neck, and I was not letting go till I saw the life leave his face. And I remember specifically that was what I wanted. But real talk, the man just picked the wrong person at the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
It was something that, it wasn't that I went looking for this conflict.
Yeah.
It was brought to me, and I already had so much that was like building up that it was the straw.
Yeah.
And I remember after that, I went straight to my car, pulled my flask out, started drinking. And the next day, the production company, your favorite production company, gave the entire crew the day off because that whole thing started because talent / an executive producer, brought that to my doorstep. So they gave the whole crew the day off. And at that time I had just started like experiencing tequila. And I, on the day off, we decided to go chill in Piedmont Park. We went to Greens on Ponce. And I went looking for a particular type of tequila, the one that I was really into at that time. And when I walked in, there was a young lady there. She was like, "Can I help you with anything?" She was actually there as like a brand rep for Buffalo Trace whiskey. And she told me about this tequila that Buffalo Trace bottles and distills. And, I was like, okay, you pretty. I'm going to just buy it just cause, And that was in like September, right? Me and my crew, we went to Piedmont Park. We killed that bottle. I was like, this is delicious. Loved it, right? That following year, March, I'm doing spring cleaning, right? And I don't know why I keep the bottles. I'm not in college no more, but whatever.
You keep it on top.
Well, it was in a cabinet,
Okay.
And during my spring cleaning, I cleaned out 22 bottles of tequila.
Wow.
Between September and March. And that was in my home, and I was there by myself. That was just me.
So was that your...
I didn't mean to cut up. Go ahead.
Was that your vice that was keeping you moving?
One of them.
I would consider that self-medicating.
Yeah.
Because what happens in the Black community, I don't want to just put it on the Black community because I'm sure it's other communities that suffer from this, but we normalize self-medicating to the point where that's more acceptable than doing something productive with those feelings. If you went to your friend group and said, "I got drunk every night this week," they would have a lesser reaction than if you said, "I just went and got me a therapist because I was going through some things and I thought it was important." Somebody in your friend group is probably gonna be like, "For real, bro? Like, I didn't know you were suffering like that." But why wouldn't somebody not say that if you said, "I got drunk every night this week"? Somebody that cares about you should have been like, "What are you going through?"
Yeah.
Because this ain't like you.
See, that's the thing. I'm high functioning. So a lot of people didn't know that I was like as drunk as I was when I was drunk. I'm a tank when it comes to that type of.
Yeah, he was just chill. That's it. But like lunchtime, like bet.
Right.
So like I want to add on to this. What you just said was just key. So you took a normal kind of place and you made it. He made it, and just so I'm understanding, he made the normal aspect of it drinking. Is that what we're saying? Or
yeah, it's like okay, anything done in excess is bad, potentially, right? So if you going out on the weekends and you want to have a good time and you want to have a drink, then that's fine. But if you're using the drinking to escape your everyday reality, then that's what is causing the alternate reality that you create for yourself. Like, I'm living in this alternate reality because my real reality is so uncomfortable.
Right.
So it's like you perpetuate those habits.
So how do we get to a place, you said that we normalize, that's him making that his normal reality? How do we get to a place where we normalize seeking therapy?
I think this is the first step. Unfortunately, sometimes we got to see other people doing stuff before we think it's a good idea. That's one thing. Confronting the stigma that's attached to mental health is another thing that's huge. It's like, I go to a prestigious gym. That's where I met Ty. Nice gym. And it's mostly white people. And you can overhear their conversations. It's way different than ours.
Yeah.
They brag about their therapists. They brag about the fact that they are proactive about their mental health, like you should be about physical health or anything that you hold in high regards. If you don't put some attention towards it, then it's going to eventually fail.
Yep.
It's one of the key, aspects of leadership is that if you don't attend to anything in your life, eventually it's going to falter. So why would mental health be the exception? Mental health is the thing, I think, that I almost hesitate to say this, but I think the majority culture wants to keep the mental health resources on their side of the fence so that we can stay in dysfunction and not be a threat.
A separation. It creates separation.
Exactly. A created separation. You can even look in the Black community, the separation is crazy. Light-skinned people don't like dark-skinned people. Big people don't like little people.
I just started liking, some people that I know in my life. When I settle my bill, I asked my mother, I say, hey, my brother, is he really?
Are you sure?
He's sure.
Are you positive?
So one thing I've noticed in terms of this whole thing, and this is going back on your situation, right? Were there any key steps, right, that you knew for sure, right? You could always fall into as like your fallback. You said drinking was one, and then you said there were other places.
Oh yeah, it was women.
Man, how bad were you at the time?
It was really bad, bro. So through my experience, I've been able to kind of like identify like markers that I think for people who don't recognize that they're going through stuff, like you said, things in excess, right? So the alcohol, the women, I would spend exorbitantly. My mom was buying shoes, clothes, things to make me feel better on the outside, because I feel like crap on the inside. I was very much like, I think over, I sought validation and approval externally. Once I realized that was really the root of a lot of what I was dealing with, I had to kind of learn to, provide my own validation. You said something earlier just about suffering from traumas, and I have a very traumatic background, not like physically or anything like that, but I moved from a different country when I was very young. Around the time where you start to develop identity, and because of that and being, when I moved here, I was the African booty scratcher, right?
So was I.
I ain't even African. You know what I'm saying?
But I was.
But you know what I'm saying? I'm Jamaican, but it's just like anybody, different. And so my difference was highlighted, and I felt like an outsider, so I would capitulate and do whatever I needed to do to fit in, right? And that was a mask that I would put on. And then I found myself, whatever I felt like I needed to do for Dax to accept me, I'll put that mask on. For Ty to accept me, I'll put that mask on. For Terrell to accept me, I put that mask on. And before you know it, you got a closet full of masks, and you are so far gone from recognizing who you are because you're constantly switching out masks, and that's what it was. It was like I had no recognition of self. And when I got to a point where I started to really identify myself and what mattered to me, I think that's when the turn changed. It was a very painful turn. There was a lot of havoc that came with it, but from where I sit right now, I'm very appreciative, despite the pain that it caused, the people in my life. I felt like, I needed to do this for me in order to be there for them in whatever capacity I could be.
Right.
You know, I lost a whole marriage behind this evolution.
Wow.
You
I
know,
needed to do that for me
Yeah.
so that I could be what I needed to be for
Right.
everybody else.
So you live in these different lives with these different masks.
right? You know, and you know there's like some congruency there. You know, like it all, but I was just so far gone from the root of me that I'm literally living on limbs, and at any given time one of those limbs could break, so I had to figure out how to get back to the root, because that's where the tree is the strongest, or the trunk rather, so it and something else that you said that I would like to piggyback off of. I hate that term. That's one of them Zoom terminologies. Piggybacking off of what you said.
You've been enough of them, huh?
It's about
Well, that's television right there. What?
Like I realized that whether or not I like it, people look, and I don't want to sound like full of myself, but there are people that look up to me. I realize that I carry myself like a leader, and that's something that my father instilled in me. And as that, realizing the influence that I have on people, I realize the importance of speaking on mental health.
Yeah.
I'm very much a mental health advocate. And I talk about it openly and candidly. I mean, you guys were just having a conversation. I jumped in because it's like, I feel like these conversations need to be had, and they're not conversations that we as Black men, and I can only speak from the perspective of a Black man. I don't know what the Latinx and Asians and what they experience, but as a Black man, those weren't conversations that we were having.
But why do you think that, though? Not to cut you off.
Well,
because
I mean, I know why.
thing.
I know why. I mean, I spend a lot of time with the introspection. We assume a lot of like societal expectations, familial expectations, and again, these are assumed, in some way a narrative is handed to us from the moment that we're born, we're told that we need to like blue and not pink, and, and it's like, they just fucking colors. Right. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, like, why does one mean, it doesn't really matter, but there are these things that are handed to us to define masculinity,
Right.
and I'm, I have a very deep West Indian background. So I think, even, for lack of a better term, the toxic masculinity that comes with that type of a background, just seeing the type of person that my father is, he's a man's man. He's handsome, witty, intelligent, he can fix anything, make anything, it's just this real bravado to him,
Those eckies.
Yeah, exactly. That's my dad.
Man in the world.
That's my father. No, that's
eckies, bro.
that's my father, and I mean that's my hero, man. I love him to death, but when I was younger, our relationship was a lot different. It was more so like, it was more authoritarian than we had like this nurturing relationship. Now at the space we are in life, like that's my homie, that's my dog, but back then he was just the principal, so to speak, like I want to do shit so I don't get in trouble, but at the same time it's like I don't want to be like, hey, I'm doing this, can you help me, so we, like I said, we assume all of these pressures, this narrative, the mores, the standards that society impresses upon us, which, man, fuck them rules. Can I cuss?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
This is called safe space for a reason.
All
Right.
Cool,
Hey,
cool.
You can say whatever, bro.
So like we try to abide by these rules that don't necessarily have any long-term payoff.
Right.
All they do is confine us and, force us to kind of like operate within a box. And, that a lot of times at some point that box end up having padded walls.
Yeah.
True. I gotta you gave me a thought. I'm a piggyback off of something that
Hey,
you
man.
said.
This episode is called Piggyback.
Right.
So I really feel like, we are like the animals in the animal kingdom. Giraffes have long necks because they eat the foliage at the top of the trees, right? It's an adaptation. So we as minorities in this country, I feel like we have adapted to the stuff the shit that we go through.
Yeah.
Right. And we have normalized a lot of stuff that would qualify real high on the trauma scale. Like I challenge all of y'all, go talk to a woman in your family or somebody at the bar. Ask them, have they ever been sexually assaulted? A black woman.
Right.
Have they ever been touched inappropriately by a family member or something like that? They'll say, oh yeah, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
No big deal. I didn't get no therapy. I didn't go get checked out by a doctor. I didn't even tell my mama because she wasn't going to believe me because that was her boyfriend at the time. Right?
But this is the shit we got to, you said you had a really good relationship with your pops. You know, I had a really good relationship with my dad as well. But I feel like this is the type of things as our generation, as parents, we need to start instilling that into our kids now.
True.
Because I feel like if our generation was, our parents were like, hey, let's just go see a therapist to sit down and talk things out.
Right.
Maybe we wouldn't be dealing with this now.
True. And I think if it's so multifaceted because when I started doing therapy in 2001, when I first went to undergrad, right? And my reaction when I said, so what you gonna do? Like, what you gonna major in? I'm like, psychology. It was like, why? Why would you do that? You must have went through something. And I'm like, didn't everybody?
Yeah.
At the time, of course, my thought was, this is the study of how humans interact in society. It's no way that I won't be able to utilize this at some point, right? Everything else was so specialized at the time. It was like, you want to be a engineer or whatever the case may be. At that time, I was playing football and I thought I was making it to the league like everybody else.
We all were.
Right. I need to major in something that I can use if the football thing don't work all the way out. So the other thing is we don't glorify in our communities anything that is outside of sports and entertainment. Or maybe drug dealing and pimping. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, drug dealing and pimping ain't that bad. No,
right. It ain't that bad. You know, it's place and everything. But
you preaching right now, man.
But yeah, we don't talk about, this dude is a good dude. He's a mental health therapist. He's doing good in the community. He's talking to kids in prison and trying to get them right. Nobody don't care about that. They like, so what kind of car do you drive?
Right.
Are you in the right rooms with the right people? Are you a celebrity? Like,
I saw him play ball. He can hoop.
Yeah, he can hoop.
Right.
Yeah.
You know the words that we use.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, for sure. But I think, like that ties back to the generational oppression, right? Like we need material things to exemplify our success, right?
True.
And I think that's why as a culture we're so materialistic because we ain't never had shit. So now that we're in the point, we want to either look like we got it before we even got it, and I think that like even those things contribute to why we're depressed because we see these things that denote success and we feel like we need to aspire to attaining these things, but we don't ever see like like someone who is like complete and whole, and because that's not glorified,
right.
So we don't feel like we need to aspire to attain that. So, our goal is to get the Benzo before we buy a crib. We spend so much money on our clothes because of the appearance that, it presents, and we don't really spend enough time like clothing ourselves, our insides, like making sure that we're prepared and just in the right condition to really weather these storms. So we really heading out here in the middle of hurricanes with flip flops and socks, and, so when we really need to be putting on like raincoats and you throwing gang signs, bro? And even that. I'm gonna pick back off that. Like that's why a lot of us fall into gang culture. Is because it's like we need like a semblance of belonging. And we all yearn for it, but we don't know what it looks like properly. So we fall into these subcultures that we feel fulfill these voids that we all experience, but we don't really know what materials we need to properly fill these voids. So like if you got a hole in the middle of the highway, like you can't just fill that bitch with sand.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You got to fill it with, right. You got to fill it with the proper materials. And what we've been doing is filling our highway holes with sand.
It's funny you said that, and I want to kind of
piggyback.
that dressing yourself up on the outside, right? And this is kind of the same topic, but kind of a different topic. What I've been noticing a lot of in our community is like the plastic surgery and cosmetic, huge ass, no waist.
It's transitioning to us now.
Right.
It's our thing.
Yeah, dudes is getting their body done and everything. And it's like filling up that hole with sand. Because what you really indicating is I don't like the way I look.
Right.
Right? The way you look, especially, some people have a range, you know what I'm saying? But the way you look for the most part is a reflection of your daily choices.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't change those daily choices, but you change the reflection, at some point it's going to be like that hole. It's going to be another void. You're going to say, damn, I need to get this done. Yeah. Or I need to get another surgery so I can balance that out.
Let me ask you this, and just to add, because we talk about this all the time, right? People who fill the void with the temporary fix tend to find people who fill the void with the temporary fix, right? To stamp the topic of the temporary fix.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's one of those things, they say hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And you can tell a lot about a person by who they choose to surround themselves by.
Right.
Right? So if you are hurting and you dealing with something, I can't really identify with you unless, you going through the same thing.
Right, right.
I like your booty now. You got a nice booty now. Okay, we friends.
Right.
But it's one of those things that, like he said, unless you addressing those voids from the inside out, it's just going to be something else that serves as that same void. Like, if I look up and I don't like, what I see in the mirror, if I change my daily habits, attend to my own internal self-esteem, and then do some internal reflection to see what gives me life, what makes me feel valuable, what makes me feel worth it and good enough, then you can start to fill those voids with something that's going to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this, and you and I talked about this, and this is a question to ask both of y'all, right? Going back to your childhood, the things that we love to do, the pure us, right? We live in the neighborhood right now. Me and my boy, usually, I told you we hang out at the gas station. We're going to go take some of the gas. It ain't us, right? But
loitering.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word
they call
for it. But it always happens that amongst friends, there's always this natural skill set or something that develops over time.
Right.
Right? He could be a genius with tech.
Right.
Like, almost like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is a crazy situation, right? Mm-hmm. But when that natural order of who you are, right? Where are your confidence is the one thing you can do just naturally.
Right.
Does it always seem to be lost, or does it not? It's almost like it doesn't have the way and the push when you hit depression.
Well, I think it's when you hit adulthood, because I can't even tell you how many clients. This is one of my things. I always work on a personal self-care plan. Right. So let's put together something that energizes you. Right?
Outside of everybody else.
It don't have to, because I like to work out, but I can't assume that you like to work out. I can't put that on your personal self-care plan unless it's something that you like to do, right? So it typically starts off with a real simple question, and I can't tell you how many adults struggle with it.
You remember that?
I say.
Remember that time? I'm going to pause. You remember that question?
Of course.
I asked him, I said, give me 3 things you like to do outside of everybody in this world.
That's the question.
That's
people. It's
what
hard.
would you do if you didn't get paid?
If you didn't get
no
paid,
incentive at all?
What would you be doing right now? What would you do outside of your father, me, your mother, everybody, right? Like, what would you find yourself doing and just be laughing and giggling, having a good time? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Or that this is organic confidence.
You know what I did? I told a client, let's get in our proverbial time machine and travel back to when you was 12. Because when you was 12, it wasn't a lot of people, hopefully, it wasn't a lot of people in your ear saying, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to do that.
Shit, you ain't from a Jamaican family. I come from a family of lawyers, doctors, engineers, attorneys, accountants, so there was pilots. I got like 3 pilots in my family.
That's how it is with Africans.
So it's like those were the standards that I felt like I had to live up to. 12-year-old me was a creative. So I think I'm very blessed now to be doing what I love to do. You know, I don't necessarily love who I do it for all the time, but the act of what I'm doing is fulfilling in that regard, you know. And I feel like because of that kind of provided me with the tools to be able to like really like unearth the real me, because I already had an idea of, you know, I had a starting point. I had somewhere that I could retrace to, you know. And I've always been a rebel. I kind of always went against the grain. You know, like I said, I come from a family, and here I am, just a creative. I like to make shit, you know. Right. So when I realized that was me naturally, the person who went against the grain, when I found myself going with the grain, I was like, wait a minute, that ain't you. Yeah. And this is where a lot of this, because I'm trying to fit into the narrative, I'm trying to follow the rules, and I'm like, bro, you've been a rule breaker your whole life. Now you want to follow rules, and this is why you are how you are at this moment, you know? So I started leaning back into me. You know, I grew my hair out, started growing my beard, you know, got more tattoos, you know, because those were the things that really I felt highlighted who I was as this like bohemian creative. You know, if you look at pictures of me from like 10 years ago, it's a very like I look like I work in a corporate office, very clean cut, suit and tie. You know, that ain't me. I wear J's, I smoke weed, you know, like, you know, and I kind of wasn't really like upfront with that type of thing, you know, and again, it was the mask.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Living those lives.
I won't go on camera and say what I do and don't do, but I don't judge people for what they do. And I think what made me successful in the realms that I was doing therapy in when I first got started is I was wearing J's. I was, you know, I didn't know what to wear today, so I said, let me go on and throw something on just so I don't look crazy or look like I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, we know from now on you can come with the hood and chill.
Next time it's a wrap.
It's a wrap, right?
Yeah, this ain't me unless I need to dress this way.
And I talk about that all the time. Like being an adult is knowing how to manage that part.
Right.
If I got to go to the office, I'm going to show up. If we got to go to an award show, we'll show up. Yeah. Right? You know the multifaceted aspect of that, right? Right. But this part you're talking about is so important because I know when I hit depression, same situation, man. We talked about it, he and I talked about it. We lost that thing. It didn't have that effect.
Right.
It just didn't. And that was the conversation that transitioned us to here, to where we're at. Yeah.
So you had something that you was using as a coping skill.
It was a coping skill. Your love becomes like I remember, I'll tell you just a quick little bit of it. I was a killer when it comes to basketball. Okay. I had levels of playing me.
Okay.
Right? You chose how you wanted to die.
Let's go.
That's how it is. I can be light and cool, just the same thing. I can be very cool, right? Mm-hmm. I've also dropped 45 points on somebody because guess what? They decided to say the wrong thing that day.
Right.
And I just pick you apart. That's it. So at that point, when I was in depression, it didn't mean anything to me.
You can hide yourself in that.
Yeah. I was numb to all of it. I was numb to myself. I was numb to the fact, like the worst part about it is that I didn't give a damn what you felt about it. Yeah, we would leave here and be like, hey, you got to live with the problem. You decided to walk. It was more of the finger pointing at that point. That's what happens. You know, I became one of those people who was like, well, you did this and you did it. There was no kind of accountability.
Right.
That's when, and anytime today I see anybody doing that, I know, hey, don't go too far down that, you know, that route.
Right.
I see a lot of people in that phase.
Right.
You know, that's the biggest thing that makes me sigh. Like you just did. Like,
right.
Oh boy.
See, what I'm thinking too is like he was saying, if you are 25 and you are in touch with the things that energize you and give you life, right? You can't assume at 35 that list is going to be the exact same. Right. You have to spend time with yourself and get to know yourself at different stages of your life. Yeah. So like, it might be some of the same things, but it might be something that's completely different. Like I just realized I like getting professional massages.
That's because you getting old like me.
Getting old, right? And it's one of the things that, you know, they pitch it, you know, in a lot of situations like this erotic type thing. That don't do nothing for me. I need you to loosen me up. Right. Like do your job in here. You know what I'm saying? So when I found somebody that was doing that was a different experience. So I'm just saying that to say, it's so many different things out there that you could probably find that energize you if you spend a little bit of time and effort getting to know yourself and being okay with saying, okay, today I'm going to carve out 2 hours to do something that's just for me.
Yeah.
For nobody else. It's not because I have to. It's not because I should. It's just because I want to. Yeah. And that's it.
And I think being okay with loving yourself as well.
So true.
You know, you can take all that time out, but when you're in those dark places, like you said at the very beginning, you know, you got to come back to loving yourself.
True.
You got to figure out who you are to love that person too, though.
Right.
Bingo. That's exactly.
Like if you don't know who that person is, then you can't love that person.
You can't love the person. You can't even identify the person.
Yeah,
that's true.
True.
Yeah, like I told you, I didn't know the same thing. Somebody asked me, my mentor asked me that question. What's 3 things you love to do? I was like, sit here, cry, and be under. You're gonna be under these covers today. Don't talk to me.
Right. Right.
That's it. And you're just. I mean, you're pretty much just numb to everything.
Yeah.
I tell people to give yourself permission to feel. A lot of times, especially as a man, you feel a feeling and then you talk yourself out of it. Mm-hmm. Like, man up, bro. Like, this ain't it. Like,
that's what society's taught you to do.
Yeah, it's like depressed. Nah, man, you still got to go to work.
Yeah.
I got a big question for y'all. How important is it to cry?
How important is it?
Yeah. Or is it important to cry to show feelings? This is actually for you. Yeah.
I know for me, it 100% is, because that's how I let out my emotions and fully. You know, but like I told you guys, we were talking about this on the last episode, I have completely blocked that side of me out. I don't even know, you know, I could watch a sad movie, someone could die. It doesn't even affect me anymore. You know, and we were talking the other day, I was walking down the grocery store. My wife is like, what do you want to eat? And I'm looking like, I don't even know what I like, you know?
Wow.
So for me, yeah, that having that side, that emotional side is good because it's a release.
I was just about to say that. So I think crying is an example of a release, but not the only way you can release. So, you know, some people are just naturally open books and they'll tell you I was scared, I was vulnerable, I felt taken advantage of. They'll tell you.
Yeah.
Those people I wouldn't say is that important to express their sadness in a certain way. But I would say the vast majority of my friends in my circles, especially the men, will rather you see them going through anything than shedding a tear. Because it's a sign of weakness. It's like, you can't deal with what's going on in your life. Like, you're a human. Like, you experience emotions.
And
but
that goes back to what you were talking about. Sorry to cut you off, right?
No, go ahead.
What you grew up like, you know.
Yeah. Like, you know, so like for me, like I had a very stoic 30 some odd years, like where I rarely ever cried. I'll say within the last 5 years, man, you know, like I just hear somebody, like I was watching Yellowstone the other night.
It's a great show, by the way.
And, you know, like it's just something like a moment that like 2 people had, I thought was just like really genuine. And it's like, I was like, you know, but like, I wasn't like, and nothing was wrong with that. But the fact that like I'm in a space now where I'll even allow myself to like messed up or whatever. I mean, hell, I one time, I forgot what movie I was watching, but I also read that when you on the plane, the altitude make you more weepy. But I was, I mean, at that point, I was like, I needed a tissue.
Bro, 34D was going all out. Huh?
Yeah. It was Everything Everywhere.
Oh,
Everything all at once. Everything Everywhere all at once, or something like that, whatever it's called. That shit had me crying. I was on this flight back from Thailand, like crying. You know. I had to roll to myself though, so there wasn't nobody looking at me. But you know, I mean, at this point in my life, I don't really care. Like, you know, I have no qualms about like expressing my emotions in front of someone, because I know that I spent so much time like keeping those things like pent up inside of me, and what that looked like once it finally like exploded. You know, like I said, I was trying to kill a man.
Yeah.
You know, like that was my goal. I mean, it took like 4 people like bigger than y'all to pull me off of him.
Wow.
You know, like I moved him from one side of the street to the other. I was just that enraged. And I realized that all of what I was feeling had nothing to do with him.
I was just about to say that.
it
You was
had
fighting more than just him
absolutely
that day.
nothing to do with him, because I knew bro was going through his own shit. You know what I'm saying? So, if I was in my natural disposition, I would have diffused and diplomatic, and
Correct.
but I had my own things that I was going on that were just like, at this point, insurmountable. And it just, you got the right one today, bro. The price is right,
It's funny. It's not even sadness, though, that we have a hard time expressing. It's like the only real acceptable emotion
It's anger.
is anger
Mhm.
from a black man.
Right.
But then if you go too far with that, you're going to get your ass locked up.
Yep.
I remember in college, since we sharing stories, I was on academic scholarship, full paid academic scholarship. The football team covered my books and housing. So I didn't have to pay for nothing. I actually got a refund every semester.
Oh, dope.
But every semester, in true black college fashion, they purged me out of my classes. And I had to go verify that I was on, scholarship and all that. And I said to myself, I know how my sister normally handles this. She come in here and cuss everybody out and they get to moving. I tried that shit. Went in there, told them I wouldn't leave until they got this right. And they was like, bro, the police is on their way right now. So you can keep doing that and go with them.
It ain't gonna work out for you.
It's not gonna be
It ain't
a
gonna
good
work out for
ending
you.
from this point going forward. So it was like, damn, I can't come in and express anger the same way as because it was all women in my house. So the same way as my parents would. I got to express myself in different ways. So I was kind of introduced to that early on. But through my work, I've seen like a person can say, I'm feeling anxiety, but it come out as anger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm scared, but it come out as anger. Like I was working in a juvenile facility. And I don't know if you know anything about juvenile delinquents, but they are the realest people you'll ever meet. Like, they ain't feeling you. They ain't feeling you. They ain't gonna be sitting there in your face like, I'm not feeling this dude. I don't want to say nothing.
Yeah.
Nah, they gonna be like, bro, I'm not feeling you. I'm not listening to nothing you say. How much longer do I got to be in here? Because it's a mandate. Of course, they got to participate with therapy, right? So when you hear their stories, it's like, you did that because you was feeling that way?
Right.
What made you want to go do that?
It don't add
It
up.
don't match.
Okay.
It's like you scared, but you slapped your teacher.
Yeah.
You felt embarrassed because you didn't know the answer. So you flipped over the tables and pulled a gun out. All this crazy stuff is like what we have been subconsciously programmed to express our emotions in negative ways.
Mm.
But there are positive ways to get that stuff out of you.
Right.
We just got to attend to that process and see, what am I actually feeling? Is it a better way to get that out of me than doing something that's going to get me in trouble?
Yeah. Man, I hate to even have to wrap this conversation up, but I want to ask you two these last two questions. What advice would you give someone out there that is dealing with mental health right now? And specifically to black men?
I would say to black men that it's a new day and age. And the days of I can't find somebody that can relate to me, I think it's coming to an end. I think eventually sitting in a group of people, whether they are black people, white people, whatever the case may be, and saying, I don't have a mental health therapist will kind of be looked at the same way as we look at people now that say, I don't have a primary care physician. I don't have any health insurance. I don't see a need for it. It's like, bro, you're not an adult.
Literally until you
You know what I'm
have.
saying? Like, you just don't get it. Like,
Right.
You think you 10 years old still. But eventually, I think mental health will get there. I think like I said, when you know that it's out there, then you see it as a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reality. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's almost like that proverbial glass ceiling. Like, if I only see myself as this, that's the only thing I'm going to reach, right? Like he was saying, I'm not going to find nobody that's going to relate to me. So I might not, if you wasn't as resilient as you are, you might have just gave up. Like, mental health ain't for me. I'm just going to kind of deal with everything internal.
Yeah.
You talked about that as well.
Mhm.
Giving up.
Right. But I think the more examples of conversations like this you see, the more, I hate to say this too, celebrities that come out and say, I'm experiencing mental health issues. That dude on Ellen who committed suicide, awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It was a player for the Rockets, Royce White. You ever heard of him?
Yeah.
He couldn't fly.
He couldn't
Yeah.
fly.
Woo.
He had anxiety about being on planes. They said, bro, we giving you a lot of money. You a first round draft. You gonna get on this plane. We don't care about no anxiety.
He didn't care.
Next thing you know, he out the league. Right? Man, I could think of so many examples, but I think that unfortunately, especially the younger population, they have to see somebody that they look up to, saying that this is okay. Yeah. This is an option. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's happening more and more, gradually. Yeah. But I think it's sad that sometimes we have to almost get to that rock bottom place.
Back against the wall.
Say, damn, I got to do some things different.
Yeah.
Dion spoke about that too.
Right. Yeah. And it's having real conversations like this. And I was going to say, I appreciate you, Trey, for coming on, because people do look up to you. And that's why, I'm very blessed to have you on the show, man. Like, I look up to you a lot as well. You and I worked together last year. And, I remember one time we were filming in the Keys, and that was a crazy day for us. But that whole entire time, you stayed calm throughout it. And like I said, when we first started this, I would have never known you were going through any of that stuff. But just having this conversation here today is going to affect a lot of people in a positive way.
Honestly, that was I love y'all, but that was my main reason for coming. To answer your question, I think identifying yourself is the advice that I would give. Figure out who you are. That will help you weed through a lot of the shit, right? Piggybacking off of something that you said, like, part of the reason I felt the importance of having this conversation is because of what happened with Twitch. Never heard of Twitch until he passed, right? After that, I went and looked on his Instagram page. 3 days before, he had this clip that he posted with him and his wife doing some dance routine, right? They looked happy as ever, right? But what that denoted to me was that, like, happiness don't look like a thing. Exactly. So like we'll see people and be like, oh man, he good. Ain't nothing wrong with him. But so I'm pretty sure there are people who have looked at me like that and was like, oh, he good, he cool. But like, bro, I've been to the bottom of the darkest holes, and being on this rebound and being able to pull myself up from this hole and seeking resources to help me pull from this hole, I felt like it was just my obligation to speak on these things and, just let people know that, hey man, like, we are human. We experience these emotions. We were supposed to,
right?
What we have not been equipped with are the tools to learn how to, like, have the discernment and identify what these emotions are. But, that's okay as well, but, there are so many resources that are now available, even, hell, y'all can hit me up. The real talk, because I have been there. I am not a LPC, learn that word today. but you know what I'm saying? I can just speak from experience, and I think a lot of times that's what we have just been missing. Like we said, we don't have the conversations on the regular within our circle. And, when you do, people are like, oh, I don't know what that is, but I ain't too proud to be like, I've been there, I'm not too proud to be like, I understand, like when I saw that, what was going on with Twitch and how happy he looked on his timeline and to know where he is now, I was like, I get it. I completely get it. I wasn't like, oh man, it's a shame. It's crazy. I was like, I know exactly how that can happen.
Yeah.
That's how I was feeling when I saw it too. It was like this outpour of, I can't believe this happened. And I was like, depression don't look a certain way.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And what one thing I thought about is if we can normalize having like a mental health check-in with each other, you know what I'm saying?
Accountability partner.
And it don't have to feel like I think you crazy just because I'm asking you how are you mentally. You know what I'm saying? I'm concerned about your condition.
Outside of the money, the looks, the coolness, the this,
exactly.
Like that's now you know why I call you.
Yeah. And that's how we survive through this stuff, man. We check in on each other every day. And I'm telling you, man, it's a game changer.
It is.
It's I'll add this just in closing. I know that part of the game. Okay. How are you? I was raised in a house where the wealth is for all of us. It's not for me. The vice is for me. It attends to the kid that constantly changes over 10 years. So you're talking about growth, right? The kid keeps you alive.
Right.
Make sure you're never missing at no stage. So the creative you that like to play with the little toy cars has turned into a filmmaker, would probably turn into something else. You never forget that person because that's your most purest voice. All right. Life, the manageable side of you, right, protects that kid in every step. That's where we're able to click and say, you know what? Okay, I can't listen to this right now. Things that you naturally do. Funny, you were talking about in your house sometimes when you have to provide certain things, you're like, look, I got to cut this off for about 4 or 5 days because I need to go hard for a second and be a man.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That relates to, unfortunately, some of the things that came from that stern, hard fathers that we've been around. But this developed when I hit in my 40s. How you doing, man? And then tell me about basketball. All of our jokes have to be about something that don't amount to a damn thing. That's how I know we're real in the moment.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? It ain't about your watch, your this and that. It just got to be a whole bunch of nothing. And I realized that you and I work out, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what I get out of it.
Right.
Not a damn thing other than just nothing. You know, and that's how I was able to find my real voice and start really combating some of my issues.
Right.
That's what's up, man.
I love it. Well, I just want to say thank you to all you guys for joining in today.
Thanks for the invite.
yeah, man.
Definitely.
I told Dax
appreciate
before
it.
we started coming up with this, I said this is going to be the most important episode that we record this season, and it's going to affect a lot of people in a positive way. So I appreciate you guys.
For sure, man.
Definitely. So the only thing I want to say is if anybody out there is suffering, you can look me up on Psychology Today. My name is Terrell Tepper. You can look me up on Instagram. It's Terrell's _therapy on Instagram. Or you could just email me. I don't want to give out my, cell phone number, but my email is T_Tepper37@yahoo.com. And I advocate for us as Black men to not suffer in silence.
Yeah, you're not alone.
You know what I'm saying? Like if you're going through something, chances are it's somebody somewhere that could probably help you through it.
I was gonna help them, but you said I'm not really experienced enough.
Nah,
You ain't no LPC, cuz.
Hey, bro.
You ain't got that title yet.
Come on,
so-
hey, now.
You didn't pay the cost. Like, no,
Terrell's like, nah, Dax, heal.
no. I'm saying, I was saying that from somebody somewhere. It don't got to be me. It don't got to be even a mental health therapist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, and I don't want to prolong nothing, but I think I've been being trained for my job from non-licensed, recognized therapists. My grandmama was a beauty shop owner. So I don't know if you ever been in a beauty shop or, the barber shop aspect of things. People just come in and vent.
Yep.
Yeah.
They come in and just air out all their dirty
You talking-
laundry.
We talked about that last week.
And they be like, I might as well go and get my hair done while I'm in here. But I came in here because I had a lot on my mind.
Right.
That's true.
Right.
So when I saw that, it was like, damn, people really respond to my grandmama in a different kind of way. It took it to the next level when my friends, I thought they was coming over the hoop. They walked straight past my room like, man, I got a lot on my mind. Where's your grandmama at?
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, okay, it's something to this.
That's it.
You know?
I went to his house to eat. No.
Cooking is my ministry, man. That's
That's it. But thank you guys,
Yeah,
man.
thank you very much.
Guys. This has been so dope, and honestly, it's an ongoing situation. That's what this is for. It's like, it's no judgment,
Yeah.
and honestly, I think there are levels to this depression thing. And you're always going to have it in some way, shape, or form. You just got to, like you said, come up with some kind of coping mechanism that's positive.
Right.
Right?
That's
And know
positive.
that you're not alone.
Yeah.
All right? We can sit in the room kicking. I can tell you, I'm broke as hell. I'm getting ready to ask you for some money right after we get out. Right? So, but it's like, you got to be open.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's what creates true bond, true friendship. And like I said, man, that's why I'm attached to the guys and fellas. I really do appreciate y'all. And I think
Appreciate the invite.
that's how we're going to live. And we're going to be like that.
That's all we got, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank
We're
you.
going to put your links at the end. Please check them out. And like you said, you guys are not alone out there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode. Please be sure to like, share, and comment on all of our social media platforms.